So these are my thoughts on Learning from a Stranger, Chapter 6. So in this chapter, we talked a lot about actually learning and integrating what we learn from other cultures into our lives. That's the main purpose of the book, and that's kind of what he wanted to start going into a little bit more in this chapter. It starts out with talking about three phases of intercultural encounters, and they are at the beginning, during, and the after. So before you should get information on the people you're going to be encountering with, during you should draw ways of hearing and responding well so uh, so the other person can feel heard, and after you need to find ways to integrate what the other person has said into your life. Most knowledge or most people have a sense of shared knowledge, and we only know that there's a difference when the web of knowledge is taken away. So the situation is obviously to learn about the culture you are trying to communicate with. It is helpful to learn norms and learn how to repair a conversation with someone when there are two different cultural norms when it comes to communicating. One must also become self-aware, because if you tread on territory that is not yours, try to be salt and light, you will only rub the person or the other person the wrong way. You must also be careful not to understand, quote unquote, understand too quickly, and make sure that the other person does not feel and make the other person feel like they're not being heard, or like we know about their entire situation and we're going to be able to just fix everything. Um, we should live in the uncomfortable in order to understand the culture for the way that it is, and not assuming that everything they have is something that is similar to us. We need to hold back what we think we know about a culture and find a way to apply what we do know to an even level, rather than overanalyzing every little expectation. For the rest of the chapter, he calls us to do two things: pay attention and ask questions. If we pay attention, we can actually understand what they're trying to say, and if we ask questions out of thirst for the knowledge of understanding, then we're doing so out of love for the act of listening more than or for out of love and for active listening rather than just to mock or pretend to care. So one thing I did like about this chapter is that the author called us out on a lot of things, and just making sure that we're paying attention and we're being present. And if we were to do things like missions trips, we're not going in thinking that we're better than them. And then we actually get some sort of cultural background to what they do and how they act. But one thing that I did not like about this chapter was that he assumed that everyone was like this and that we didn't need to learn another language. That part made me very frustrated. Just because of the fact that I know it is integrated into everyday or most public and private schools at this point. I also know that it's required just because it is such a popular thing. Like, you do learn some good problem solving skills because it's not our heart language, but that doesn't make us lesser of a person. I also think that for some it's harder to learn languages, so we shouldn't look down upon them. I know a lot of other cultures do learn English because it's almost universal, but I don't think people go in assuming that it'd be fine if they never learned another language. I think they've just never seen around them the opportunity or the need to do so. I would say it's more out of ignorance that we haven't learned another language, rather than we assume that we just don't